All right. Well, while we wait for the rest of our participants for the October event, we want to get a few things kicked off for some housekeeping items from SEMpdx. As always, I am Garrett Brown, president of SEMpdx. I'm happy to be joined today by Julian Gray and Carly Scott from Logical Position. But before we get to their presentation on a couple of steps to prepare for the holiday 2021 season, just a couple of housekeeping items. We'll be having a new round of virtual events being announced here within the next few weeks. Be sure to follow us at SEMpdx on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and wherever you take in your social media news. We're across there. We'll be making some announcements as we kind of announce our 2022 events, as well as a couple of specialty items that we'll have throughout the remainder of 2021. So always be sure to follow us on all our social medias for the most up-to-date context, and also sign up for our newsletter at SEMpdx.org. As always, we are keeping our free membership base going for the remainder of 2021. So if you want to utilize any of the free membership benefits still available, we are open and we're keeping that open through the end of 2021, and we'll have some announcements thereafter. But if you are interested in that, SEMpdx.org/membership. As always, we're happy to feature our charity of choice. In 2021, that is Elevate Oregon. Elevate Oregon is a Portland-based community organization that helps with mentoring, career development, and ongoing education for the youth in the Park Rose neighborhood. If you're interested in any more about Elevate Oregon, the cause, and all the donations that we here at SEMpdx have made and our group has helped raise, go to SEMpdx.org/charity of choice. We will also be announcing registration for our 2022 Charity of Choice Drive. That will be coming soon in a newsletter and an email release soon. So if you have an idea for a group that SEMpdx can partner with in the coming year, please keep that in mind and be on your lookout for the inboxes for the submissions for the 2022 Charity of Choice. But throughout the remainder of this year, we're still going to be looking to feature Elevate Oregon and do everything we can support in their amazing cause. And then before the end of this year, we'll be making some announcements around Engage 2022. Our intention here is to remain in August, as we have for the last 2 years with our virtual events, but with some new announcements around how we're going to be presenting next year, including an in-person option that we hope is a great success and return to the Search Fest and Engage conferences of the past. Be on your lookout for special announcements around that as we look to solidify the details and a few of the options that we're going to be made available to any and all as we look forward to the following year. But without any further ado and without any further questions, I want to hand it over to Carly Scott, Senior Enterprise Account Manager, and Julian Gray, Senior Search Manager Specialist, both from Logical Position. They're saying it's never too early to start on your merry holiday season. Some of the things you should be looking at for your website and a few other steps along the way that you can take to make sure that this holiday season is a success in a time where it still might be a bit tumultuous, but a few steps that they're going to have, and we're looking forward to it. As always, if you have questions, please put them into the chat. We'll be looking to answer them throughout the presentation, and of course, a more interactive live Q&A at the end of the presentation. But without any further ado, Carly, Julian, the floor is yours.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I do apologize in advance if my chat decides to make a sporadic introduction himself. So I will get my deck up here and we will go ahead and dive on in. So let me go ahead and get it up. And before I get started, is everybody viewing here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put our faces down here and we will go ahead and get started. So here's a brief look at what we're going to be covering today. Before we get started, I first wanted to introduce ourselves as well as Logical Position. Logical Position is a digital marketing agency. We were founded in 2010, so we are actually fairly new when you actually think about it, but we've been very quickly growing. We started off primarily offering PPC efforts, and we have been expanding our product offering ever since with SEO, web design, graphic design, data feed management, Amazon ads, social, and we're continuing to expand. One thing that I'm particularly proud of with this company is that we have repeatedly won the Inc. magazine's 50 best workplaces, and our co-CEOs are actually listed as #2 on Glassdoor's top CEOs. So it's definitely a wonderful place to work. We love it, and we're excited to represent Logical Position today. So a little bit about ourselves here. I will go ahead and move us over again. I'm on one screen today, so apologies on that. But myself, I am actually, my title just changed. I'm now an account manager team lead, actually. So I work in our enterprise department with higher spending businesses. So I'm focused on primarily growing those businesses and scaling their Google Ads and Microsoft Ads spend. That's typically where my focus is. But like I said, we have other products outside of PPC specifically. I also have a group of account managers that I manage and help with their book and their development as well. Julian will introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Julian. I appreciate everyone for taking the time to hop into this presentation today. I'm a senior search marketing specialist. Right now, I work with small to medium business, mid-market, and have some enterprise clients as well. So I do manage quite a variety of strategies and goals for our clients. In addition to that, I help with new hire trainings and onboarding future paid search specialists. And then in addition to that, I do help train our sales staff in finding flaws and auditing onboarding clients' accounts in the hopes that they make it over to logical position.
All right. So before we dive into really preparing for this holiday season, we wanted to kind of set the scene. This year was definitely a unique one, or at least the past year and a half, I should say. Typical PPC trends, obviously most of you guys are probably aware of all of this, but usually we tend to see increased CPCs or cost per clicks during this time of year due to increased competition, whether that's businesses upping their ad spend, willing to pay more and invest more in PPC efforts, or just more competitors in general entering the space and trying to take advantage of the holiday season. We also traditionally see higher search volume and higher conversion rates as there's more people shopping online and buying their Christmas gifts. So like I mentioned, this past year has definitely been a unique one. With COVID, this last holiday season was really odd and presented its own round of challenges and unique, performance drivers. So for example, we saw so many people flocking to online shopping because it was necessary. They weren't able to do in-person shopping. And we are seeing a lot of those people sticking around. We're also seeing a lot more new audiences, a lot of older demographics entered the space and are sticking around. For example, my mom, she did not ever do online shopping. And now I swear she's got a package coming every single day. So we don't expect that to shift, but what's unknown is how much that's going to pivot from online to back in person. There's still a lot of unknown variables here. There is also a big influx of competition re-entering the space, which we'll dive into in a little bit more detail here shortly, which is contributing to higher CPCs this year, pretty actually significantly higher than what we traditionally see during the holiday season. A couple of other things. One thing that specifically I wanted to point out here was Black Friday and Cyber Monday as individual days are becoming less and less important. Instead of everybody putting all of their eggs in those 2 days, we're actually seeing that Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals are more of a several weeks. And actually Amazon, I don't know if any of you saw that, but they're already talking about Black Friday deals. So it is becoming a much longer event, and it is becoming something that businesses are tapping into and offering sales earlier and longer. And then, like I mentioned, there is still a lot of, question around this holiday season. More and more people are wanting to celebrate this year because maybe a lot of them weren't able to actually celebrate with their families. But some people are still financially unstable. A lot of people were laid off last year. The new COVID variant is still kind of up for question as to how that's going to impact the holiday season. So basically, I'm just here to say, here's what's going on normally in the holidays, and there's a lot of uncertainty around those traditional holiday trends, which should be taken into account in planning for this season, which we will now transition into. Let's see here. I saw one question, perfect, okay. All right, Julian, I'll pass it off to you.
And now when we're prepping for the holiday season, especially with the wild ride it's been over the past 18 months to 24 months in some regards, we really want to make sure that we're focusing on that historical data and auditing our performance of the past. We're looking to get that clear view and spikes of traffic, conversions, impressions. All of those little data metrics make a very big difference when you're forecasting for the upcoming holiday season. An example, one of the things you can be thinking about is looking at your previous top converters, whether that is a certain product, a category, a brand, or specifically search terms that we're converting? Have you utilized those from the past year or the previous holiday season being built out to cover more real estate in your Google Ads, Microsoft Ads campaigns? Once you have a better understanding of looking through that data, you can open it up through October to January. Typically now we're seeing that consumer behavior has shifted and is looking to purchase online early and earlier. So when you're looking through this data, you can get an idea of your budgets and what your performance goals may be. Maybe explore the idea of this year being a little bit more flexible with your budget and maybe lowering performance goals. Maybe you are setting out to see a very high return on ad spend, a very low cost per acquisition, or high average order value. But maybe this year you can reduce your return on ad spend just a bit to gain more customers, or maybe you can reduce your average order value to push out more orders. Those are different things to think about in this competitive atmosphere to be more flexible. If that isn't necessarily possible, maybe you can add some budget recommendations based off of this historical data. Maybe you can look at last year's top performing areas. Maybe you can look at last year's promotion and sales from October through January to get a better understanding of what you're forecasting for this upcoming year. You can specifically look at how, in example, granularly, how certain hours of the day are performing for you. Do you see a large rush for what we will call the Turkey 5? Do we see that large rush happening for your business and your website during the early hours? Or are you actually seeing more and a higher conversion rate during the later afternoon times? That can give you an idea of how to efficiently utilize your budget moving forward. Once you have a better idea of what the holiday season has entailed for your business over the past year, you can start looking very granularly at that Turkey 5, specifically Black Friday, the Saturday, Sunday following, and Cyber Monday. How does this happen? If you see this graphic below, this is kind of the increase we see during the holidays. You can see a large spike in our average cost per click occurring right around Black Friday and the holiday weekend, going up and then kind of leveling off at a higher level than it was previous to the holiday season. It's something you have to account for. You may be paying more per click already, and that may increase 2 to 3 times as we go into this competitive holiday atmosphere where many may not know exactly what type of traffic they're going to experience, if that is going to go to their brick and mortar store, or if that's all going to see an influx in that online shopping. So you're narrowing down when this increase happens. You're looking specifically at those hours of the day. You're looking specifically maybe at the locations or states if you're targeting nationally. You're looking for those areas of spend that are performing properly or the areas that are inefficient and you aren't necessarily seeing the return that you'd like to garner from the holiday season to stretch that dollar a little bit further every year. In addition to that, we can kind of consider and forecast. We know there's some seasonality, but we can look at what are we expecting? Look at this previous year. Look at summer of 2021, spring of 2021, and compare that as well. Have you seen an increase or decrease in traffic overall? Carly alluded to it being a much more competitive atmosphere, impressions being down, some clicks being down. What is this meaning for your business? Are you looking more at the low funnel clients? Are you looking for people who are already qualified for your product? Are those who's coming to your website? Or have you seen a large uptick in traffic? Are you spending much more than you were the previous season? How is that impacting the business? That's where it helps us set those clear goals for your return on ad spend and your cost per acquisition, average order value, or in general, what it takes to get someone to your site. In some cases, if you're spending 5x, 10x more than you were the previous year because of the success you've seen online, that's going to factor into the type of goal you're looking for. However, if you've noticed a large drop off in traffic and you're spending less, that's also going to impact going into this holiday season. So setting those clear goals, which we'll touch on a little bit later in this presentation, can be advantageous to you as a business owner or managing a client's book. Further, we're noticing sales are starting earlier and earlier every single year. This year, sales have started at the end of September, beginning of October, people trying to get ahead of their competition with Black Friday warm-up sales, Cyber Monday warm-up sales, the Thanksgiving, Small Business Saturday, things like that to get people into their sales cycle and their marketing funnel to further leverage that customer data, maybe to remarket to them with better promotions, target cart abandoners more aggressively, and stay in front of the consumer's eye. Typically, we recommend trying to do these pre-holiday sales. As Carly mentioned earlier, too, it's becoming a longer and longer cycle rather than just Black Friday or Cyber Monday as those big sales weeks. So it encourages early shopping, allows you to get in front of that customer. Maybe they purchase your product, they're happy with the experience that you offered or your client offered, and they come back last minute to purchase more products. Further, some things we can consider is we saw the wild shift of iOS 14 and what that did to Facebook. Not everyone was on top of that shift and may have not come back or figured out a new strategy for their Facebook and their social campaigns. So you may see a large influx of people who aren't happy with their current social returns, shifting that budget away from those social platforms to the likes of Google or Microsoft, or being more aggressive in Amazon. Those type of areas are what we like to think of and look forward to when you've done your historical audit, you've seen what's performing, what wasn't performing, and then factoring in a few of those variables for yourself. Another thing you'll see is an increase in traffic trends. Some of those trends may necessarily be a huge influx of searches for certain apparel, certain brands, certain toys, whatever that may be. Be prepared to see an influx on your site that may blow out your budget, which hopefully you've prepared for and you're understanding the type of traffic you're seeing going into this season. And if 2020 wasn't a great aggregate of data for you, look further back, look into 2019, look into 2018. It was a very unique holiday season. So ask those scenarios. What happens if I'm more conservative with my budget? Can I get a better return for less money if I'm only targeting X, Y, and Z? Or if I'm more aggressive and willing to see a little bit less of a return on ad spend, but a higher volume of revenue or sales, is that the goal I'm going after? That's something you have to establish early on, because the holiday season happens fast, as we know. And if you don't have an idea of where you want to be, there may be a lot of missed opportunity that occurs from playing day by day and not understanding what your overall account goal is. Like we said, this is still a time of large uncertainty. These effects can be felt currently, they may be felt for years. So being able to pivot quickly is something that is going to help you tremendously. If you've set a goal and you haven't necessarily hit the goal you'd like to see, or you aren't seeing your forecast being met, pivoting to elsewhere. Is that pivoting from Google Ads to Microsoft Ads? Is that pivoting within your Google Ads account from a certain brand or top selling product that you thought was going to do well to another area that is looking to perform better? Being on top of that is going to help you stay in front of your competition and maximizing your efforts during the holidays. And then you look at some of the industry trends. How have the audiences changed? Who's coming to your site? What's their age? What landing pages are they going on? Are you seeing a huge increase in your cart abandoners? Have you monitored people purchasing on your website, your newsletter? How has that behavior changed? As Carly also mentioned, there's more brands out there. So are you finding a lot more repeat customers and more loyal customers? Or are you seeing more one-off customers occurring throughout this sales cycle? Further, when you look at this graph, we can see this huge uptick, right? As I mentioned, in trends. Again, this is a holiday specific keyword, but you can see this large spike that happens towards the beginning of December. Maybe using Google Trends to look for your industry and see if there are any spikes to prepare for can help you out going through this holiday process.
Perfect. Okay. A lot of this all does tie back together. And it's really, again, painting a picture of how unique this year is and all of the things that need to be considered when forecasting either for your own business or for your clients. And one of them is competition. It has been a huge, huge part of 2021. So this kind of paints that picture in this graph. Pre-pandemic, CPCs were, fluctuating here and there, but nothing crazy. You can see in this couple of months, this is the holiday season, a traditional normal CPC spike. After the holidays, CPCs absolutely tanked. And this was a result of competitors and businesses pulling back their ad spend dramatically or completely nixing their ad spend on the Google Ads or Microsoft Ads market. Pretty much since then, you can see that those CPCs have been coming back and exceeding what they were doing pre-pandemic. So basically, everybody kind of realized, oh, hey, everyone is online because they're stuck at home. I should probably actually start putting my money back into Google Ads. And we not only saw people increasing their ad spend back to normal, but we saw more competitors entering into the space. So this is something that really needs to be considered for 2021 and 2022. We'll continue to see this. And then for 2021 holiday season, we do expect continued increases in CPCs, but they are quite a bit higher than what we've seen in the past. So a couple of things to keep in mind when looking year over year. This is why we keep referencing when forecasting and when doing your historical audits, not just look at 2020, because some of the data is going to look really, really skewed. Your impression share might be down because there's more competitors entering the space. What I like to do with my clients is look at the auction insights report if you're familiar and show them month by month how certain competitors have started increasing their impression share, or maybe there's more competitors who started entering into the space. You might also see when looking year over year at 2020, decreased traffic. During 2020, people were basically able to capture a ton of volume for a really inexpensive cost per click because, like I said, there was less competition in the space, but there was more traffic online last year because everybody was trapped in their homes. Now, we do expect growth for e-commerce, but we might not see this massive influx of clicks. We're seeing everything kind of resetting back to normal from a volume standpoint. So that's also something to keep in mind, and why we also advise looking at previous years other than 2020. Another thing that is really a huge contributing factor in this is big box stores like Amazon and Walmart have re-entered the space. During the pandemic, Amazon basically, really pulled back their ad spend quite significantly. And since then, especially you'll notice, actually, if I go back to this, around Prime Day, which was in June, you can see a pretty big steep increase here in those CPCs. So that was the result of both Amazon and Walmart. Walmart decided to push up during that time as well. So basically, these two big box stores, which have endless massive budget, have re-entered the space and again are contributing to a more expensive auction. So with that comes more options. So a lot of consumers are making purchases with brands that they have not purchased from in the past. So that's another thing to consider when actually planning out your budgets. A lot of businesses are spending more to get in front of their audience because there's more competition in the space and people are willing to buy elsewhere at this point. So it's so important to be in front of them when they're doing the research and figuring out what they want to buy for the holiday season. So you're actually a part of their purchasing journey. I think this would be a good spot to pause for questions. I was going to pop into the chat and see if there were any, but it doesn't look like there are. Does anybody want to chime in, or do we want to keep going? Okay, we can keep going then and dive into questions further on.
So I mentioned it during the audit, the ability to be flexible, a flexible budget. Once you've dialed down and understood if you're seeing a large increase in traffic in the early portion of the day, or the week following Thanksgiving, or the 2 weeks before Christmas, or you're noticing a huge bump in ad spend or demand during the evenings, you have to be prepared for that. We know historically that ad spend budgets and the day of costs can easily shoot up 2 to 4 times than what they are average. So being able to be flexible and pivot for those areas can be very beneficial. And this can be simply based on percentage allocation. If you're using a lot of display advertisement and you're noticing a return there, can you quickly and easily shift budget from potentially shopping or search or YouTube into another area to help aid that performance? But in the same regards, you have to think of the whole picture. If you're noticing that during the month of November from your historical audit, that spend is typically lower, or you're not seeing as many conversions occurring the week or 2 weeks before Black Friday or the Turkey 5, maybe it's worth tapering off your budget for the time being if you aren't meeting the goals that you'd like to hit, and then utilizing that saved budget from cutting down earlier on and adding that to your Turkey 5 and your holiday season to be more aggressive. In addition, you can look beyond the single holiday purchase and think about building greater lifetime customer value. Sometimes this may be a lower return, it might be a slightly higher cost per acquisition, but as we know with customer lifetime value, this could be significant gains for you over time. This could be individuals who then end up coming back to you for other sales you do throughout the year or other promos, such as after January, you have Valentine's Day or spring sales going into the summer, things of that nature. But you want to try to avoid capping yourself or being limited by budget in some regards. Essentially, if you've set a budget and you have a hard stop on that, what are you doing to make sure that dollar goes the furthest? Because if you do see that large increase on Black Friday or any day in the holidays, and you're running out of budget at 10 a.m., you could be missing out on a huge portion of your sales cycle. You could be allowing competitors to step in the space, get in front of the consumer who may not have been purchasing right away, but be aware of their brand name and come back later. That's why it's really important to be nimble and flexible when you're utilizing your budget. It's very easy nowadays in Google Ads to be limited by budget. If you're trying out some sort of automated bidding strategy, that could be something that's affecting your budget. If you're trying out new strategies for your advertising efforts, the ramp up period, which we'll talk about later, how is that affecting your budget? Are you getting enough data? Being able to analyze these metrics and these numbers from a small to medium business, one person shop, all the way up to the enterprise level clients is going to help you maximize your return and maximize your efforts during the holiday season.
So one big thing that actually somebody was bringing up prior to our conversation is inventory. So inventory has been a huge issue over the past year. Basically, the pandemic brought to light a lot of faults in our global supply chain. There's been shipping delays as different shipping, locations have basically shut down, or there's been manufacturing delays and shipping has gotten quite a bit more expensive here. So basically what I've been telling my clients, and honestly, I've been telling my clients this since January of 2021, plan for the holidays accordingly, have enough inventory, be prepared to accommodate the influx of traffic, both throughout the entire 3-4 month period, as well as throughout those specific peak sale days. So, also take into consideration if there are new products, if there are new brands that you have, as well as if any have been discontinued. This also goes into play when doing your historical audit and taking into account what you might be spending on. Like I mentioned, manufacturing issues has been a huge problem. I bought myself some furniture about 5 months ago, and I have still yet to see that furniture. So this is also something to really keep in mind, even for budget planning, because we are expecting some of that to be factored into consumers' behavior when making their purchases. For example, I can't speak for everybody in their holiday shopping, but I do plan on doing my holiday shopping well in advance. I'm already making my Christmas list because I want to make sure that I get all my gifts well in advance and I'm not, waiting on my mom's gift 3 months later. So that is something that I think a lot of consumers are used to at this point: shipping delays and manufacturing issues, products being on pre-order or back order. So that's also something to take into consideration. So if you have the inventory, hopefully this is something that you or your clients have already been preparing for, because at this point it probably is too late. But if you have the inventory and your competitors don't, that's going to be a huge win for you.
And so there's overall strategy. We've talked a lot specifically about pay-per-click advertising with Google Ads and Microsoft Ads, but you want to have an entire overarching strategy to ensure you're tapping into all channels. We've seen it more and more. The consumer sales cycle is becoming more intertwined. We're seeing longer conversion paths. So if you have all of your eggs in one basket for PPC, and say for some reason something breaks. Maybe your feed isn't working properly. Maybe you have accidental ad disapprovals that you didn't catch before. Then all of that time and effort you put into setting up your strategy for PPC goes by the wayside. And then maybe your email marketing has, been forgotten about. Your social ads aren't firing. Maybe you haven't thought about your search engine optimization or your conversion rate optimization. You want to make sure you're diversifying your efforts just as a fail-safe, and also because that competition is unusually high this year. So maybe someone does find you through PPC, and then you can acquire their information and put out that email marketing campaign prior to the Thanksgiving 5 or the Turkey 5 and keep them in your funnel. Microsoft ads, paid social media campaigns, they're all a way to get in front of your customer in different ways. The messaging, have you thought about how you're going to tell the story for your holiday promotions across platforms? If you're telling various different promos and various different messaging styles, it may confuse the consumer. They may not be alluded to that you're the same brand offering these great promos or these great products. Making sure you have a cohesive feel to that ad copy and messaging is really going to help you out. So that way, if they do come through organically and then they find you through PPC, they get a sense that it's the same locally owned, if you're a locally owned business, or whatever your competitive advantages are. They're seeing that multiple times to stay in front of those competitors that are often ticking up in those auction insights. Then think about your ramp up period. Are you going to try a new strategy for the holidays? When we see this huge influx of new accounts to Google Ads, Google has to get acclimated with all of those ads, do all of the reviewing. If you're using an automated bidding strategy, maximize conversions, maximize clicks or value, you're going for a target cost per acquisition. That's going to take what we know as the learning period. That can be sometimes a couple of business days, sometimes it could be a couple of weeks. And you don't want to be missing out on opportunities because you're trying to go from 0 to 100 overnight. In addition to that, the data that you're looking at from that ramp up period, is it performing well? You want to be able to tell and confirm to yourself that the new strategy that you're utilizing is performing to your expectations and meeting your goals. If it's inefficiently utilizing your ad spend, inefficiently acquiring a customer, if it's showing the incorrect products, you don't want that to happen the day of or the day before the holiday season. That's another obstacle that you have to incur as you go into the holidays. So making sure that you have a strategy in place and enough time to amalgamate all of this data and understand what your decisions are going to be to make actionable changes that are going to positively affect your account. In addition, we've talked about Flock a little bit before this, but third-party cookie deprecation. Yes, it's been pushed back to 2023, but this is another great time, an advanced tip for the future to think about how you're going to capture your customer information and have accurate remarketing list or audience lists. Is that finding a way to now start highlighting your newsletter through promos? Is it a way to highlight account signups on your website through various incentives? Ways to essentially combat that upcoming change well in advance so that when it does occur, you aren't scrambling to put that together. You're in a positive spot to easily make that transition and capitalize where maybe some of your competitors aren't.
So when setting all of this up, it's really all coming down to setting expectations for yourself as a business owner or for your clients, helping them and yourself understand where the budget is needed, why the budget is needed. As we've mentioned, last year, there was exceptionally cheap bulk amount of traffic, and that's probably not going to be the case this year. There's still going to be a bunch of traffic to be acquired, but not as cheaply. There's also a big shift in how people are shopping. People are taking a lot more time to browse, like Julian alluded to, and there's a lot more options out there. So time lags are longer. And also, as he's mentioned, diversifying our efforts in order to create multiple touch points, because you could be acquiring one type of customer on Google Ads, but not reaching another type of customer on maybe Facebook, for example, or Amazon. So it's just making sure that you are creating those multiple touch points in order to capture the volume where they're at and make sure you're there throughout the research process. So this is also something that needs to be taken into account when setting those goals, because if we're really just sticking to a crazy high ROAS, you could be missing out on all that new customer acquisition that is at play when people are at the research phase. I always tell my clients, if you're not there during the research phase, you're not going to be there during the purchasing phase. So, obviously it doesn't make sense to be there for every single click, in all circumstances. You need to still remain profitable, but this is a completely different couple of months than earlier in the year. So if this year does make sense, if these couple of months do make sense for you to accept a lower return to acquire that customer, the lifetime value of that customer could be worth it for your business. And it could be worth it to get your name out there amongst all the competition. So all these questions are things to be asked. And again, just kind of circling back to what is needed for this holiday season and setting that scene for what 2021 is likely to hold. And again, it's still so unknown. So, having that expectation setting conversation is also important in recommending budgets. I've given my clients some pretty wide ranging budget recommendations saying, hey, I honestly don't know what this year has in store. There's a lot of variables at play, but here's a range. And I would advise you to remain flexible when looking at all of this, because, it's more important, I think, for this holiday season to remain flexible and in order to roll with the punches and what this year has in store.
So now you've made it to the big day, the start of Black Friday. You've identified through your historical audit potential categories or brands or products that are performing well. You've identified areas of inefficiencies. You've identified areas that you may want to push a little bit more. You've looked at the products that may be your top selling or some of the products that have better profit margins. How does that affect your day of? It's definitely not a day to set it and forget it or strictly rely on Google's automated programs to optimize your account for the day of. Instead, it may be better to have a day-by-day game plan to maximize that return. Typically, we try to build a 5-day plan, talking about the Turkey 5. Some areas and some clients, I do this the 2 weeks before Christmas as well, as there's a lot of last-minute shopping. When are you planning to begin ramping up your digital marketing campaigns and these efforts? Have you thought about those new strategies and when you're implementing them? More specifically, how are you going to optimize those strategies? Are you prepared to make those hour-by-hour adjustments? Personally, depending on the amount of data you're getting in there, there may be a delay in Google Ads and Google Analytics to that data that's coming in, but you can make decisions very quickly and meaningful decisions to say, oh, I thought this certain product was going to be doing very well, but it looks like it's spending a fair portion of my budget and not converting the way I expected. But it looks like over the past hour, these other products are showing high conversion rates on my website. So that's an area of hour-by-hour adjustments that you can make to stretch your dollar even further. Then, with that flexible budget we've talked about, are you accommodating potential spikes in spend? If you thought you've set out a game plan and you're seeing much, much more traffic, do you have the ability to raise your budgets by $10, $15, or make those adjustments so you aren't losing out on search impression share to your customers or to your competitors, or you're losing out to your competitors in terms of you're running out at 11 a.m. and historically that a lot of your sales are coming at 3 p.m. Have you looked at and made that game plan and consider that amongst your team or yourself to say, I'm willing to make these changes. Maybe I need to check in every 4 hours, and I think that is going to be where I make meaningful changes. Maybe it's every hour. It's finding that balance during a hyper-competitive holiday season to make those adjustments, because you risk losing out on a lot if you aren't actively managing that campaign or trusting an automated software, because that automated software in some cases may have performed well, but maybe there's one particular product that is spiking all of the spend in that automated strategy and cutting out a large potential of people at the high funnel or the medium funnel of your sales cycle from seeing your ads or making it to your website. In addition, not just digital marketing, but looking at your website. Are you noticing, particular landing pages that are working better? Are you noticing any errors that are happening on the site? You want to be on top of that, because in some cases, even your site being down for 10 minutes or a 404 popping up, you could be losing out on thousands of dollars of sales, or that new customer acquisition that results in that customer lifetime value that might help you out a lot more than it will specifically in the holidays. Overall, this is your best chance at success by staying engaged with your advertising and reacting on the spot with opportunities or challenge. There's a lot of things, Carly and I have touched on, and a lot of that has been, a reminder to you to look into there, but there's a lot of things that affect every business differently. Every business is unique. So creating that strategy for yourself or for your client and having that open communication is really going to help you maximize this holiday season.
All right. That is the end of our deck here. So I guess I will open it up for any potential questions.
Yeah. So while we wait for a few questions, one of the things that I had written down, guys, is, obviously the nature of holiday retail has changed quite a bit over the last 2 years for many reasons. Has there been something, say, since Q2 2020 that you've seen last year and you feel is going to continue into this year, a new trend, be it a new platform or something that you've really seen that is diametrically opposed to maybe something you saw in 2018 or 2019 that you tried to make more and more of your clients aware of, be it a platform, a vendor, an advertiser out there that has really seen a tremendous amount of growth? Because I know a lot of the habits have changed. Is there anything like that you guys have seen out there?
Julian, you seem like you wanted to say something. I don't want to step on your toes.
This reminds me of what I think Scott had asked too. One of the things we've been pushing a little bit more is just the use of a dynamic shopping feed if you're e-commerce. Historically, we've seen some clients, pre-2019 staying on what is called a static sheet, meaning maybe that's only updated when you have time to update your products or the descriptions. Utilizing a dynamic feed, alluding to being able to show products that are in stock properly, price changes properly, easily apply Google Shopping promotions has been extremely helpful during this kind of turbulent times, as Google is also, disapproving different industries and changing different areas. I know for a while we saw some issues with health-related products, obviously due to COVID. And so having a dynamic feed made it really easy to quickly pull those from the feed, as some of the areas created some obstacles with static feeds is one of the areas I noticed, at least in e-commerce, outside of automated bidding strategies, which has changed quite a bit. That has been helpful for us.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, automation as a product has gotten quite a bit more sophisticated. It still requires a lot of optimizing from a human standpoint, in my opinion, but that's something that has a lot of opportunity for the holiday season. The other thing that came to mind, and I mentioned this, is the fact that Amazon has re-entered the space. That's a huge one. So they're overlapping with a lot of people in Auction Insights. But that platform as a whole has gotten more popular for business owners as well. So if you have the margins to do it, Amazon can be really expensive. They take a big chunk out of you if you're on there. But I'm not going to lie. I hate that I did this. I did like all my Christmas shopping on Amazon the past couple of years. So if you can afford to be there, if your clients can afford to be there, if it makes sense for their industry, I'd recommend that platform for sure.
Mike Rosenberg, I know you have a question. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks. So you were talking about the change in shopping habits, which made me think back to, goods were big during the beginning of the pandemic, right? And then that started to shift a bit back into services and experiences and things like that. Do you have ideas of where we are with that for this holiday season?
It's, in my opinion, I'm still seeing a combination of both. It's so hard to say because a lot of my industries that, for example, I work with a client that sells bags, they're still recovering. And a lot of like experience things are still recovering too, because not every single state is open. So it's still kind of a lot of unknown. And a lot of my clients that had, like the bags client as an example, they saw a huge decline from COVID. Nobody needed a bag. Nobody was going anywhere. Well, people still aren't really going anywhere. A lot of people are working from home. So that particular industry is still recovering. So personally, it's hard to say in my opinion, or at least in what I have seen in the industry. I think both are still on the recovery. And I'm hoping that both are the case this year because, so both of those like fields of products need to see growth. And I'm seeing in my book, at least, growth in both aspects there.
And I would say on my end, one of the things that I've noticed in terms of shopping habits and consumer behavior that's become much more transparent is the price comparison. I've noticed a lot more of my clients that may not be as price competitive any longer that were performing well in the past. Users are now taking more time online to make that purchasing decision. I'm seeing my sales cycle is getting longer and they're coming through different channels multiple times before making that purchase, whether it's a $20 item or it's $2,000. They're taking the time to look at the website and understand what they're really getting in the offers being presented and if the price makes sense. In comparison with shipping, we saw some of my clients had to change shipping and that really affected them. They may have had the lowest price, but that shipping, once it came up, made an impact on the purchasing decision, at least in the goods sector. In terms of services for me, it's been kind of up and down, a little bit more seasonal, and kind of a state by state data has changed as different restrictions and mandates occurred that are out of the business's control to flooring or carpeting or landscapers or car dealing or car detailing, things like that have shifted just on a state by state regional basis.
One of the things I've seen, guys, is want to see if you guys have an opinion on this, is kind of a resurgence in affiliate marketing. Something that I used to be a Wild West, and it seemed as though throughout Google updates that some of those were deprioritized, that less companies were relying on them. And then, over this last year, I've definitely started to see more and more affiliates re-enter the space, both from an organic and a paid. And, as they come into more and more to the product marketing, I wanted to kind of get your guys' take if you guys are seeing any sort of warning signs around the impact that affiliate marketing has had on any of your clients.
As far as I think the biggest, I'm seeing an influx of affiliate marketing lately as well. I think the biggest quote unquote annoyance, in my opinion, for affiliates is when they're bidding on your brand terms and they just make your brand terms more expensive. That's probably the biggest annoyance. If you want to do it though, and you don't mind that, and maybe your market is a bit more saturated, and getting in with these affiliates is going to help you kind of build your brand name up, I'd just say weigh the pros and cons. Like I said, the biggest thing is making your brand CPCs more expensive, where you should not be paying that much for your brand terms if you can avoid it at all costs. That said, the plus side is I know some of my clients are doing affiliate marketing and influencer marketing, and I'm particularly excited for the influencer marketing because these random influencers are doing video content and then we get to use it for free on their YouTube channels. And that kind of advertising is actually really powerful in this day and age. A lot more people are responding well to, some influencer being like, oh, I tried this product, but I loved it. And that video kind of adds that more human element to it, as opposed to like this big box commercial sort of situation where you don't really feel like you can trust the content as much. So I guess that's my little opinion on that. Julian, did you have anything to add?
For the clients that I have that are testing affiliate marketing, one of the big things for us has been proper tracking, whether that's through UTMs and understanding where our traffic is coming from, or if our affiliate has been able to track it on their end and understanding the true performance there through those affiliates. The other thing I've noticed too, and not I guess you mentioned earlier in different platforms, is the ability to compete with yourself. I have clients that are advertising on multiple social channels and Amazon and eBay and all of these different areas. And some affiliates that are also, as Carly alluded to, you're competing directly against yourself. Even if you're looking, they're advertising for your brand name, you have to figure based on your tracking, where are you seeing better margins? Is that directly through the site, or is the revenue you're seeing from affiliates making up for that loss of margin or that loss of revenue on your end to be beneficial to your business?
Well, thank you, Julian, Carly, and Logical Position for allowing you guys to step away from your day-to-day and provide us with an hour. We really greatly appreciate it. I think that there's a lot of great information there, and everyone, including myself, that participated today, learned something new. So I want to thank you both for your time, and thank you all for joining our October virtual event. As we said at the beginning of the call, we will have a new slate of virtual events coming out. Be on the inbox, keep your eye on your inbox for new announcements there. And of course, follow us on all of our social medias at SEMpdx on Twitter, on Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'll have several announcements around for the rest of 2021, as well as our new slate going into 2022, as we're constantly reevaluating our ability to not only hold these events virtually, but also return to in-person when and if health regulations allow us to. But in the meantime, go onto our website at sempdx.org/membership and sign up for your free membership today, as well as look at our charity of choice in Elevate Oregon. And we'll be soon opening up registration for our 2022 charity of choice. So if you'd like to have an impact there as to who we support next, that will be the best resource for you to go. And of course, everyone have a safe and healthy and happy year. And we will see you all at our next virtual event. Thank you again, and goodbye.